hard work, being trustworthy, being prudent. They're Scottish values. And I'm a very proud Scot. So when I went to work for RBS, that's the Royal Bank of Scotland, straight out of school and after I'd done my hires, I was delighted. I went into the secretarial pool and then I was asked to be a PA, first for lower management, then middle management, and then eventually for the top brass. I had real pride in my work. I got a call to go and work for the chair of RBS. I was thrilled. It meant a move to Bishopsgate in London, and I was going to work for Tom McKillop, who was the chair of RBS. Now, part of my job was to put phone calls through, and I was kind of used to being asked to call important people. But on the 7th of October 2008, I detected in Tom's voice a kind of desperation. He asked me to get hold of Alistair Darling. Alistair Darling was the Chancellor of the Exchequer. So I put the phone call through, and the routine is that I get his people to call my people, and there's a lot of kind of kerfuffle. I called Alistair Darling's people, and Alistair Darling wasn't there. Alistair Darling had left early that morning for a meeting in Luxembourg. So there was a hiatus. And Tom, by this time, was getting very anxious, and I stayed on the line. Now, I'm not supposed to do that, but I stayed on the line, and what I heard was astonishing. When Alistair Darling eventually came to the phone, Tom McKillop said to him, "Alistair, the bank is running out of money." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. RBS was the largest bank in the world. It held assets bigger than the whole of Great Britain's GDP. That's huge. And Tom McKillop was saying that the bank was going to fail. And what are you going to do about it, Alistair? What was Alistair Darling going to do about the failure of RBS? Well, how soon, said Alistair Darling. By 4 o'clock, the cash machines will have run out of money. The banknotes in my purse say RBS. I bank with RBS, my family banks with RBS, and I couldn't tell a soul. I was listening to something I shouldn't have heard, and I couldn't tell anyone. In a few weeks, everybody knew, and the bank was bailed out. 20,000 people were made redundant. I was one of them. Just last week, investors were paid their first dividend in 10 years. That didn't stop another 62 branches of RBS closing and another 167 branches of NatWest closing too. That's an awful lot of people. I have 3 F's in my life. Family, finance, and fashion. Family. I have 2 young sons, a husband, and I live in London. Finance. I now work for alternative liquid assets at Deutsche Bank, but I did work for Lehman Brothers Bank. The best thing about Lehman's? The people. They were sensational, energetic, go-getting, loving adrenaline. The best. I really miss Lehman's. But you know, Lehman's bankruptcy was an epiphany for me. I realized that people just didn't trust bankers anymore. So I decided to pursue my third love, fashion. Sure, the fact that I'd worked in finance didn't do me any harm. It gave me the capital to set up my women's clothing brand, The Fold. I have a shop on Pond Street and we trade online. I'm really keen in putting the feminine back into corporate clothing. I want women to be women. And sure, I've always worked in an all-male environment. But I like that. I'm not a feminist. I don't diss men. I just believe in opportunity. I say if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. The Holy Trinity: bankers, politicians, and developers. Bollocks! May they never rest in feckin' peace. In 2010, I was working in a care home, 12-hour shifts. I had 2 kids, and my husband, Christy, had been laid off construction. When I got back after working my 12-hour shift, who did I find at my door? The bailiffs and the guards. They were there to evict us. There are 3,000 feckin' homes empty in South Dublin, and they were evicting us from ours. I was livid, absolutely livid. So I took a ladder from the back of the house and I climbed to the top of the roof. And I sat there on that roof and I raged. I raged at the feckin' developers and I raged at the bankers. They could bail out the bankers, but they couldn't bail us out. They'd sent the bleeding bailiffs. And I sat and I raged for 6 hours. And what happened? Sure, a crowd gathered and I got cold. And I got humiliated, and eventually they called an ambulance. I spent 3 weeks in a psychiatric unit. It's only the poor that are feckless. The bankers, they get something different.